Oh, hello, hello, and I am live. Yay, or at least I think I am. Let's double check as always. Because I was on Janome Canada Instagram Live, or I attempted to be Janome Canada Instagram Live on Wednesday, and something was going on Instagram, so I was not able to go live. So am I? Oh, yes. Yay, I am live on Facebook. Yes, hello. This is wonderful. Hopefully all goes well. Ooh, yes. That I should be live to the Janome Canada Facebook page, Janome America, that's Janome Sewing Machines Facebook page, Janome HQ YouTube channel, and Janome America YouTube channel. So any opportunity to share the Janome love. So thank you everyone so much for joining me. It's lovely to see everybody here today. Yes, I am normally Michael Smith, the National Education Manager of Janome Canada, but today I am Hermie. You may all remember Hermie, the cute little elf from the Rudolph Christmas special. He was the elf who never really fit in because he wanted to be a dentist. I've always identified with Hermie. I sort of never fit in, growing up especially, but even these days. But here, luckily, yeah, sharing the Janome love, I fit in wonderfully. Yes, that we can share the Janome love regardless of what machine that we have. I'm back to share with you in the Continental Club here. So specifically, we're going to talk about the Continental machines, but again, this project can pretty much be done with any embroidery or any machine out there. It doesn't have to be the big CM17, what I'm doing, which is sewing, quilting, and embroidery. So let me flip around because as usual, time is going to go by so fast. So thank you everyone so much for joining me today. It has been absolutely, crazy busy, as I'm sure it is for all of you, trying to get all your projects done. So here, yes, today I'm back from my palatial estate in Collingwood, Ontario, Canada, about 2 hours north of Toronto, and I have been sewing up a storm. Oh my. Stephen has got a M17 this past Tuesday. Wow, well, Christmas came early. Congratulations. Wonderful. Oh, thank you. Robin says, we love you, Michael, down in Texas. Thank you so much. I absolutely love it. I would certainly love the weather in Texas as opposed to all this snow. But again, regardless of the weather, let's just stay inside and sew. So here I'm on the CM17. But what I'm going to show you today, this is so adorable. And I say that because I didn't create it. Our fabulous, there she is, Janome Canada Artisan, Kim Jamieson-Hirst. I know you all know Kim. She has been in the Continental Club as well, doing lives. She's created this adorable Circles of Cheer wall panels. There's a series of 3 wall panels. Now, using the Janome Circular Attachment to make those circles, and you can use some fun decorative stitches, use up scraps of fabric, whatever you wish. Again, full PDF instructions that you can print out. And where you can find that, you go to our Janome Canada website, you type in Janome.CA in your browser and go to Inspire. There is an Inspire tab on the Janome America website as well, but since Kim is a Janome Canada Artisan, she's in the Inspire tab here on Janome.CA, and we view Canadian projects, which is over here, and then we scroll down. Again, we've got lots of free projects, and there are Circles of Cheer that you can print out the instructions, full instructions, step-by-step photos, everything. It is so adorable. She tells you what you need and everything. So now, again, pretty much any Janome machine can do this. Now, we are going to use the circular sewing attachment, so to a certain extent, that will restrict the machines, but we have many different circular attachments, how they fit into the machine, so that it opens the door for quite a few. So when we do these Circles of Cheer wall panels, what we're just going to do, again, follow the instructions, very simple. We just start with this is I cut mine 10 inches wide, and we just 10 inches wide here. This is half the meter, half the yard, half the width of the fabric. is what I cut mine out, and we just draw the lines. Again, full instructions on where to draw these lines that you're going to position your applique circles. But the cool thing using this circular attachment, we're not going to have to trace and like circle templates. We're going to start with squares, various sizes of squares, and again, full instructions included. But you can cut these squares any size that you want, really. So after we do our marking, and then we have, oh, this is where we can get into lots of fun. Now, in Kim's instructions, she recommends using rickrack. She had some beautiful metallic rickrack that she would use to put down, you know, in a long straight line, to put this down on your fabric to sew just with a straight stitch right in between that rickrack, and then the ball would be hanging here. But my rickrack, this is the only rickrack I had in my drawer, and I'm like, oh, that's not really Christmassy. I don't really like that. What else could we use? Well, again, this is where we go down that creative rabbit hole, especially at this time of year. Perhaps you're going to be getting a gift or some chocolates, especially a lot of those beautiful gift packs of chocolates. Oh, they've maybe got a cute little festive ribbon, like this Merry Christmas kind of satiny ribbon. Maybe them, again, I save everything, so you never know when you may use it. Oh, maybe you've got a gift that's wrapped in or tied with, this is like some grosgrain ribbon. Then you save all of these. I have backed it, each of these, backed them with stabilizer. In this case, it was a sticky back stabilizer, because then I'm going to use these. Again, this was normally be garbage, but oh no, when you're a sewist and you open your eyes to creative possibilities, oh, look at all the fun you can have. As I stitched these down, again, here was some other little piece of grosgrain trim that I had from, well, I can't remember what, but again, I save it everything. Now this could make a great hanger, and then the ball will go at the bottom. So again, if you don't have the correct supplies included that is written in the pattern, oh, maybe you can improvise with something you may have in your stash like this. And again, those chocolates are a great way to get these ribbons. Now on the back of all of my, again, in my trim and here on the back of my fabric, I want to back it with stabilizer. So there is many different stabilizers out there. You can go on our Janome Life blog, and there's lots of blogs about stabilizer. When we do all of this decorative stitching, we need to support it by beefing up our fabric. So here is a tearaway stabilizer. It doesn't matter which brand, they're generally categorized as like a tearaway. Sometimes if one layer is not enough, we can add definitely, 2 or 3 or 4. If you have an embroidery machine, you save every little scrap. If not, check with your Janome dealer what kind of stabilizer they have. Again, Kim writes about it in the instructions. Again, free instructions on Janome.CA in the Inspire tab. Oh, from Holland. Hello, hello. So again, all these long vertical strips, again, how perfect for doing these long vertical strips of these ribbons. So you might have a tearaway stabilizer. This you may be able to see with the glue dots here is a fusible. You'll fuse it to your fabric, but it too is also a tearaway. There's also some fusible that'll permanently stay in your project. Or what I have here on mine is actually a sticky back stabilizer. And this is great. The sticky back is great to use if you have knit fabrics, or if you're embroidering knits or sewing on knits. You see just a sticky back, which we could remove. I'm just going to leave it in here because, again, it is it's a wall hanging, so I don't have to worry about like sort of wear and tear or making this too stiff. Actually, the stiffer the better for the wall hanging. It'll hang nice and straight with all this decorative stitching. Sometimes we add, this is a water-soluble stabilizer, a thinner layer, a thicker layer. I did all the sew for home hobby patches, for example, with this thicker water-soluble stabilizer. And again, on Janome.CA and Janome.com in the Inspire tab, there is lots of free embroidery designs there as well. and you'll use these stabilizers. Now, these can also be used as a topper. They could be under the fabric or again on top of the fabric. And then we would rip away the stabilizer, or in this case, we would dissolve it in water and all the stabilizer will wash away. So those are some alternatives. And again, lots of information on Janome Life blog. And yes, there's even stabilizer. This is again the tearaway in black, or this is a cutaway stabilizer that again would stay permanently in the garment or in your towel or in your project here. And then again, we would cut around it, around the stitching very closely. So lots of different stabilizer alternatives. Again, Kim goes through some of that in her instructions, and lots of instructions on your Janome Life blog. So I wanted to talk about applique because, again, normally with the instructions that Kim wrote, we'd just be using that rickrack and we would just be sewing it down with a straight stitch. But I thought, oh, this is a good opportunity, again, to use some of these ribbons you may have in your drawer for years and years, and we could do some applique. So sure, I could just use a regular straight stitch, but maybe you can see that little applique. You'll see it better from the back side. Many of our machines have dedicated applique stitches. Now, if yours doesn't have a specific category, you can, again, just even use a zigzag stitch. Maybe you have a blanket stitch. Again, this is just a little, almost like an invisible applique. It's just got that little zigzag bite into the ribbon in this case, so you really don't even notice it, especially since I'm using red thread. So the cool thing, our feet, when we do applique and our decorative stitches, we will probably want to use one of these clear plastic feet. This is our regular A foot, the zigzag foot, but it is a flat foot. So for decorative stitches, we don't recommend using this foot. Instead, we'd like to use either the F foot that has this little red triangle in the middle there, or the, and again, it's got the grooves on the back side. So this is how the decorative stitches can pass through very easily. This is the F2 foot, may come with your machine or it's available separately as well. It's an open toe. There's no little bar there, but there still is a little center notch right there to indicate center needle position. So this is F2, and again, those grooves on the back side. So the applique and the better visibility and the decorative stitches can form. So there's many different alternatives to the presser feet we can use. So we've got our, things like our presser foot workbook that has more information about all of our presser feet. We have the A to Z with Janome series on the Janome HQ YouTube channel that goes through demoing these lettered presser feet. So what I'm going to do is to take advantage of, because all these specialty presser feet, they have a purpose and a lot of, sort of guides and functions built in. So this little red triangle here that I could line up with the edge of my ribbon here to do my stitching. Maybe I want to guide my stitching with like just the toe of this foot. So there's many different ways to use the foot. Now, because I've already started my project, what I do is I write myself little notes here so I remember what I did. So I will just drop this, and then I've got to speed through because already the time is going by so fast. So depending on your machine, now here in our Continental machine specifically, here on the CM17 especially, but in all of our Continental machines, we have so many stitches. So we can go into, and again, any of these zigzag stitches would be fine too, but it's really fun. And we go into our different categories. We have this whole applique category. So in which case, you just experiment. You try your little test samples. They don't have to look anything beautiful. I was doing some satin stitch samples, for example, and I'm just testing, well, what does 0.4 length look like? What does 0.3 length look like? What does the elongation function look like? These are all editing capabilities built into a number of Janome machines, and we can use those editing capabilities to get exactly the look we want. It's just really good to do the experimentation on your little scrap first. So I selected this applique stitch number 14 because, again, it's just got that tiny little bite into the, in this case, my ribbon, so it looks barely invisible. So that's a really good stitch to use. Again, match your fabric, or you could even use some invisible thread, some monofilament thread that you could barely notice. But here we can, again, adjust things like the width. You see how it's going a little bigger, and it's taking a bigger bite into the fabric. Or we can also adjust there. I'm making it a little shorter. I'm making it a little longer. There's so many things we can do to customize. Now, we don't have to worry about, oh, what was the stitch at? We can just go to default to set it right back to normal. In this case, I wrote myself a little note that I used a 1.5 length, and I increased my or I used a 1.5 width and I increased my length to 2.0. And whenever we change on all of our Continental machines, whenever we change anything, now these numbers go in blue. So I know I've done something. I'm going to leave the rest of my settings just the same. But again, we've got lots of editing capabilities built into the machine. So when I do this applique, again, very simple. I've got my machine all set up, and now when I'm going to use my foot as a guide, you see my needle is here to the left. I want to make sure that when I go off the edge of the ribbon ever so slightly, so to get my needle exactly where I need it to position my fabric, I can turn my balance wheel, or this is when on our Continental machines, don't you adore this thumb wheel? Oh, I never thought I would use it as much as I do, but applique is the perfect time to use it. I can rotate this thumb wheel, and it will rotate the thumb wheel, and it will drop the needle just ever so slightly. It just hovers over my fabric, and I see, yes, it's right in line with that ribbon. So perfect. As I do my stitching, then it's going to go into the ribbon, but because that's such a small little bite, I'm not even really going to see it. It works out perfectly. Now, you won't have a camera in front of you that's going to get in your way as I line up my fabric. Yes. And I can use the, again, because it's clear, I can see through the foot how perfect that is. Oh, and this is where, again, I could spend my whole day just doing this. The whole live could be me just stitching this, but it works out so beautifully. And again, I won't finish as much as I'd love to. Now, the good thing is I can easily go back and pick up where I left off as well. It's never an issue. You're going to make your cords here to hang the balls longer, and then the ball itself is going to cover this, so you don't have to worry about finishing this raw edge. So that works good. And again, let me get back to, ooh, there again, you barely see that. It looks so good. Now on this one here, oh yes, I just did a straight stitch. You see how this looks like stitching to me. So I just wanted to follow a straight stitch down here. So in order to do that, let's go back to straight stitch here. Since I am going to go through extra layers though, I don't need that tight 2.4 stitch. I like to lengthen when I do like more like top stitching to 3.0, just because I'm going through some thicker layers. Now I could use this F foot, and because it's got this little notch, the little red notch, well, I could ride that little red notch right down this printed line on the fabric. That works out beautifully. So I could use that, or a foot that we may already have included with our machine. As we do with all Continental machines, this is the G foot, the blind hem foot. And you see, because of that rudder, I'm going to run my row of my ribbon here right up against that rudder, and it's going to be the perfect edge stitching foot is when I really love using this blind hem foot. Now, again, the A to Z with Janome series on Janome HQ YouTube, I go through how to do a blind hem, but also when I want to use this foot for edge stitching, I'm going to line up my ribbon right up against that rudder of the foot. So that way it's going to be perfectly aligned. But my needle is not in the correct position. So I need to move my needle. And here we could use our LCD screen, or again, we've got our buttons here, our dials here. I'm going to move the needle over to the left. So I'm going to move it. Usually I do for top stitching, I do 1.0 is most top stitching. In this case, I moved my needle over to 0.5. So it's way over to the left. And we need to move the needle over to the left because, again, that guide is right in the middle for when we do our blind hem stitch. When we're using it as an edge stitching foot, if we use center needle position, our needle would hit that guide. So we have to move the needle over. So now when I do my stitching, oh, boom, this is so perfect. It works out so good. We just keep that ribbon right against the rudder of that foot, and that is going to be perfect. So simple, so easy. And look, and you don't even notice that stitching because, again, it's already printed like there's stitching. And there you see the backside. So how beautiful is that? So again, so good. So whatever kind of foot you may have, just experiment. This is the S foot, the ditch quilting foot, again with a similar center rudder. Well, we could also use this foot. Now, it doesn't typically come with machines. Maybe you already have this for your Continental machines. And then there too, line up your ribbon with that rudder. You move your needle over. It works out so good. So maybe you've got some presser feet that come with your machine, or certainly you can purchase them separately from your fabulous Janome dealer. Now, when we get into the circular attachment here, I had lots of fun doing some applique, and again, things like, oh, this is where I did the satin stitch. Here, it doesn't always have to be just an applique stitch. This was a satin stitch. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to sort of try a different stitch going off the ribbon in this case, instead of a straight line. It's your project. You can do whatever you wish. I thought this applique turned out so beautifully. I loved it. It was so fun. Now I'm going to come back on, oh, it's next Thursday. No, next Tuesday. In the Janome Sewing Machines Live. And I'm going to be also working on this project and show you some alternatives, some more presser feet that we can use when you don't have all the supplies for the project at hand. Look at that. I had to rethread my needle, and because I followed the steps in my instruction manual, I was able to do it live in front of you. So isn't that wonderful? So yes, when we get into the circular attachment, very quickly, very importantly, we need to remove our bobbin cover and get the circular attachment that fits this bobbin cover. So some machines have a square bobbin cover that this will clip into, and others have a, oh, this is the square one. They have a square base plate. So again, you take your bobbin cover off, and then even you could go to the Janome dealer and say, like, does that fit? In this case, no, it does not. But many machines, more like the QDC machines, again, have a square bobbin cover. So that circular attachment will work for those machines. This one is the rectangular one, similar to that bobbin cover, but it's for machines that do not have, models that don't have this easy set. configuration. Those 9mm machines, all the Continental machines are 9mm, and they're all easy set. They have this little thread cover off to the side of the bobbin area here. So then we know when I take away this bobbin cover, we need the Easy Set Circular, and it says Easy Set Circular Sewing Attachment for our machine. So that's going to fit all of our Continental machines. Now, don't you love the Continental machines? Oh, look, I needed to keep track of this tiny little screw that comes with the circular attachment for Easy Set. So my Easy Set circular sewing attachment is right up there on the magnets. I absolutely love the features built into the Continental machines. It's just incredible. So here I use the threaded screw hole of the needle plate very quickly. And there's been many blogs on Janome Life, many Janome sewing machines, Facebook presentations. Our fabulous Celine has done many in her Facebook lives. I've done many Instagram lives. There's so much about the circular sewing attachment. It's so fun. There's this ruled guide here. This little top hat comes off, and there's a very sharp pin there. And that's what we're going to spear our fabric and basically sew in a circle. So as always, we're going to do our test samples. Now here I'm going to do some decorative stitching. So yes, I'm going to use either the F foot or the F2 foot here with, again, the groove. For the decorative stitches here I'm doing, and now we have many stitches we could use, just a plain old zigzag, but in this case, again, I was experimenting with satin stitch, in this case number 10, various lengths to make the satin stitch a little tighter. You see it's a little more open here, it's a little tighter, and it's a shorter stitch there. This one, 11, wasn't so bad, but when we do this applique, again, can the raw edge of that fabric underneath, can it show around the edge? So that's why this stitch number 11, which kind of looked like a little bow tie to me, I didn't really like it because there you'll see some of my applique fabric here peeking through. I thought this stitch worked out much better. Stitch number 10 in this case worked out better. But again, we could do a regular blanket stitch. We could do a regular zigzag stitch. Look at that beautiful applique stitch. Isn't that so gorgeous? So the left edge is all even with the edge of the fabric, and then the stitch goes into the ball. Or this was another I thought was really fun. Now you can use a lot of decorative threads too when you get into doing this. In Kim's example, she used metallic threads, but you see, oh, now is a great time to use some multicolor thread, or how about some of that bright neon thread? Again, maybe some metallic threads is so beautiful. There's lots of blogs, again, on Janome Life blog about using more specialty threads. The fun thing about using the circular attachment for applique is, again, we find the center of our fabric. In this case, I just folded it to find the middle here. And again, Kim's got all the instructions on what she cut the squares, but you can ultimately cut your squares whatever you prefer. I'm just going to go back to normal center needle position here. So when we stab this, be very careful. We stab our fabric onto, oh, and then this is where too, I almost forgot. To do this step, Kim recommends, again, you take additional stabilizer, even though I already have my project here backed with stabilizer, I have some additional layers of stabilizer because especially if we're going to use a very dense satin stitch to cover this edge of the fabric, we really want to beef up our fabric. So there, we put the little top hat back on. And now again, we can move this wherever we need to. I'll just, we can take our little guide here and measure from our pinpoint. Let's say I want that at 3.5 inches, so I could use my guide there, and then I'm going to lock this into place. Lock it into place under here. And then this is just a regular straight stitch. And again, because I'm going through thicker layers, I'm just going to lengthen it a little bit. Now, this is the fun thing about this applique. We're going around in a circle. So when you have a bigger project, yes, you want to fold it up and make sure like it doesn't get caught anywhere. I do have some pins holding down my fabric. I have pinned in a way so it's not going to impede my sewing, that I don't have to stop and remove my pins, but they're also very fine pins. And again, we can always make sure that our fabric doesn't shift. I want to make sure that this stays down. We don't really have to babysit our fabric too much. We don't want to manipulate it too much, but I just want to make sure it all stays nice and flat. Because then I do have the, there is a backing, a fusible backing under my fabric here. Now in this case too, this is also where I could lighten the pressure on my presser foot. If my top layer of fabric here is really moving around, in this case I would probably pin it a little better, but I could also lighten the pressure on the presser foot, and then that won't scoot that top layer of fabric down. Again, when I'm doing things like this applique and I really don't want to manipulate my fabric too much, I use, again, very fine silk pins. They're not the big clunky, pins. They're the lemon flavored pins I typically use for quilting. I use very fine pins so it doesn't distort the fabric. Now, the cool thing about this applique, we don't remove this from the circular sewing attachment. I can unlock it so I can get some better movement here, but this is where this is so cool. We take our 4-inch, in this case, mini duckbill applique scissors, and you see I'm trimming very close to that straight stitching. I don't have to trim, or I don't have to print out any circular templates, and I don't have to trace any circles and try to stitch them all beautifully. I hate that. Instead, look, I'm just using the circular sewing attachment, in this case, to rotate my fabric. And again, you won't have a camera in front of you, and you won't have the pressure of doing this quickly. But it really doesn't take that long. And again, these 4-inch mini duckbill scissors, oh, I can't sew without them. They make this project so simple, so easy. And again, we just keep spinning this around. So simple. So after we do all this applique, and we do want to try to trim as close to our straight stitching as we can, because then again, the stitching we do afterward is going to cover this. This is why this project works so good. It's so quick and very fun to do. So you trim all that off, and you see I have like a sticky back. I didn't fuse this fabric down, but it's got a sticky back adhesive to it, paper backed, that we press, and then I just did my stitching after I do all my stitching. Then I can press the whole applique down a little better. So remove all of that, and then, yes, when we do our stitching, this is where, again, which foot are we going to use? As recommended by Kim in her instructions, I'm using the F foot in this case, because again, it's got that little center red notch. So it makes it really easy to see. I'm going to line up that notch with my straight line of stitching that I just did to secure this down. So now I can select, whatever stitch I want. Again, just a regular old zigzag. But when we go into here specifically for our continental machines, yes, we could just use regular little zigzag stitch, more like a satin stitch here. By the way, R, means right needle position. L means left needle position. And M means middle needle position. The applique stitches that I really loved doing in those other samples was this one. Again, the left-hand side is justified here, and or the right-hand side is all justified, and then it goes into the left, into the applique. There was the other one I used. And again, you decide, oh, which one that you want. Another one we could try is, oh, maybe these heirloom stitches might be cool. There's so many things that we could do. Ooh, how about that one? That looks like it could be very cool. Very much like a blanket stitch, but it's got that nice dense. Ooh, that nice dense stitching. Now I could make it a little longer, whatever I choose to do, in which case I'm just going to leave it as is. So again, you have so much fun. So I'm going to again line up my project where that straight line of stitching is right along that little red triangle here. And I can just spin my project around so I know, yeah, that's gonna, yep, that totally is gonna cover. And again, make sure, do this little test first to make sure here on my right edge, will my needle cover, and again, use that thumb wheel, will my needle cover that raw edge? I didn't get as quite as close here. Will my needle cover that raw edge? And yes, indeed it will. So no problem. So we can start anywhere we like. I like starting up here at the ribbon. So then that way when I overlap my stitches, it's going to be up here. So you can kind of disguise that a little better. So I won't be able to sew this whole thing because, as usual, it takes me a longer to explain all of this because then I just love being thorough and I love giving you so many options. That's the fun thing about all these projects and on our Inspire tab on Janome.CA and Janome.com. There is so much creativity available for free at your fingertips. And you just spend, so as we get into the big Christmas break coming up, that maybe you get some time after all the holiday entertaining and you've got those couple of days maybe before New Year's or right after New Year's where you can actually take some time and get in your sewing room. I really have to clean mine. But then again, you spend some more time and you can do some of these projects. Now, I also thought, wouldn't it be fun to do this project? You could, instead of Christmas theme, well, maybe you do these all in pastels and you could do these like for Easter or do them for spring. You could really have a lot of fun. Use some nautical themed fabric, maybe for your, cottage, or if you have a house near the beach or something like that. And again, this is where I could just spend all of my time sewing. And this is why this is a really dense stitch. Then this is why we need those extra layers of stabilizer underneath to help support the project. And then after this is all done, I could go back in and trim up the stabilizer around my stitching, again, using my 4-inch mini duckbill scissors. In this case, it's the wall hanging, so I don't think it'll really matter. We can put a layer of batting when we go to finish this off. We can put a layer of batting in between and just add a little bit of softness. And then we can do all the free motion quilting. Maybe you'll do ruler quilting. Again, Kim has some suggestions for free motion quilting in her project instructions, but how you quilt all these layers with your batting and your backing, is entirely up to you. I always think of these projects that we all do are springboards for your creativity. You're the designer in all the case. In each case, that we present all of these instructions the way we did it to give you suggestions, but for the most part, you're in creative control the whole time. You can do whatever you would like to finish. So again, I won't take the time to finish this all, but I'm not going to remove it because after I cut the camera, I'm going to finish this. Look at how gorgeous that stitching is. Isn't that beautiful? And all that, again, all that raw edge is covered with my stitching. And again, the thread, whatever thread you want to use, I'm using some embroidery thread, typically polyester embroidery thread with that beautiful sheen. Or again, just as a little tip, metallic thread, as Kim used in her sample. When I use metallic thread, I always have a thread net over it. And I like doing, our machines come with the 2 sets of spool caps for all the different spools. I like inverting the spool cap here. So then I have like a little shelf. so I don't have to worry about this kinky thread wrapping around my spool pin. It makes it go so much easier. So let me flip around, because as usual, the time just flies by. And again, I will be back in the Janome Sewing Machines Facebook group and Facebook page next Tuesday at 3 p.m. And I'm going to continue working on this Circles of Cheer project, but I'm going to show you some alternatives as well. What if you don't have all of these feet and attachments that we may use for other projects? What other alternatives can we use? So I hope you'll join me then. So everyone, I hope you have a very wonderful weekend getting everything ready for the upcoming celebrations, and have a fabulous day. Thank you so much. Bye.